Today we're going to be talking about annotating, and annotating is a really important skill that is only going to help you be successful throughout middle school, high school, and college and beyond. Annotating is a very important concept that the sooner you begin, the better you'll become at it, and having it in your repertoire is only going to make you a stronger student. So, what is annotating? Annotating is taking notes and making comments on the text to deepen your understanding and comprehension of the piece. It is a close reading of the text, purposely looking beyond the message, is what's written on the page. You analyze how the text is written and what the author is saying. A really helpful way to remember what annotating means is if you look at the word annotating, the root word is note, meaning you're going to take notes. And if you're annotating a text, you're going to be taking notes on the text. And typically when you're annotating, it means writing directly on the text. So I've included an image here of what an annotated text looks like. So why do we annotate? Well, when we read something, there's usually a reason. And annotating lets us dive even more deep into why we're reading a piece. So first, we look at why we're reading it in the first place. So we look at audience, message, author. And then afterwards, we can do so much more because we've broken the piece down. We truly know if it's a reliable piece, if it's a trustworthy author, if the piece is well written, and we can then do so much more with it and really comprehend and have discussions and do more projects with it. So what questions should you be able to answer about your article or your novel once you finish annotating it? And it's the 5 W's. Who wrote the book? And who is the audience? What is the message? What's the theme? What's the point of the article? When was it written? Is it relevant? And it's really important to look at when something was written. If we're looking at an article, say, about soap, if we're wanting to research a different type of soap, whether or not antibacterial soap is safe to use, if we're reading an article written in the 1920s or 30s, it might not be the most reliable. Think of how far technology has come since then. Think of how much we've progressed. Where was it written? Same thing. If we want to read something about American school systems and we're reading an article that was written in a different country, is it going to be as relevant? Sometimes, yes, it will, but sometimes if that author doesn't have a true understanding of American school systems, it's not going to be relevant. And no matter how educated they are, if they're not truly informed on our school systems, it's not going to be relevant. Finally, why? Why did this need to be written? Why did this need to be read? Was there a purpose? Ties back to the what. What is the message and theme? So the 3 main annotations that will help you get started and really focusing are underlining your main points, circling keywords and phrases and vocabulary that are confusing or unknown to you. By circling them, you can remember to look them up at a different time. You can bring it up in class and ask your group or me, say, hey, I was confused by this. Can you help me? And then using a question mark for questions that you have during reading that you think would be really interesting to discuss or something that really stood out to you. Like, wow, I was really shocked by this statistic. I was really kind of thrown off by this statistic. Can we talk about, is this true? And then when it comes to underlining your main points, you really want to make sure that you're keeping it to the main idea and that you are keeping it pretty concise and not having a lot, because the point of just underlining the major points is that you can flip to a point of your article and automatically just be ready to go and know what to talk about. But since you want to be awesome students, we want to kick it up a notch. So you can use an exclamation mark for things that surprise you and briefly note what it was that caught your attention. I am making this next quote is completely made up. It's completely fabricated right here, right now. If I was to read an article that said 20,000 people died from soap washing their hands last year, I would be really shocked. That seems like a lot of people that died from washing their hands. So I put an exclamation point so I knew that we would talk about it in class the next day. You can draw an arrow to connect something inside the text or to an idea or experience that you have. So if the article talks about the soap causes cancer, I can maybe draw an arrow and talk about my own family's experience with cancer. Or if they make a comment that the soap causes cancer and then later on the article make a really specific claim, this is the specific ingredient that causes it, I might draw an arrow from right there, from the previous mentioned statement there. And then finally, jot your notes down in the margins. Most articles will have space that you will write stuff down. So for our class, I left about 2 inches or so that you will be able to write down. Now, if you're specifically analyzing literature, look for clues about characters, setting, and again, the 5 W's. And the who and the where will be addressed in there, but that's what you're looking for. So this example, and I hope you can read it, is a brief article that a lot of 5th graders have read. And I only have one small portion of it, but that will be more than enough to do the 5 W's, at least get started on it. So the article states, John Fielder could have drowned on his way to work. His raft bumped over rocks and pinched through rapids in the Dolores River in southwestern Colorado. The spring runoff of melting snow from the mountains sent chilly water crashing down the river. Fielder's raft rushed towards Snaggletooth, the largest rapid on this stretch of the Dolores. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to open this document. So I've already got who, what, when, where, and why typed out. So the who. I know we met someone named John Fielder. What was John Fielder doing? He was rafting into work, but he almost drowned. This tells me he was in a dangerous river, specifically the Dolores. He was in southwestern Colorado. So John Fielder was rafting to work. He almost drowned, so we know it's a dangerous river, specifically the Dolores River, which is located in southwestern Colorado. We know it's springtime because if we go back, it says the spring runoff of melting snow was crashing down to the river. So I'm going to go back here and say springtime. So we don't know why he was rafting in the river. Rafting into work. Why couldn't he walk? Why couldn't he hike? Why did he live in a place where he had to? Why did he have to live in a place where he had to raft? So I'm going to put NA for now, but I'm also going to put my questions I have down here. Why was he rafting? Was he wearing a life jacket? Because we know that if you whitewater raft, it's a dangerous activity. Most people wear life jackets and they wear helmets because if they crash, they can crash on the rocks and crack their head open or pass out. So was he wearing a life jacket? If he was, then should he have drowned? Obviously, we're not going to be able to answer those questions without the rest of the article. And this is just another example of what it could look like, how detailed you really can be when annotating. So you always start annotating with the title. It will give you hints at what the book will be about. They might not be as obvious until after you've read the book for a while or even finished the book. But looking at it and thinking, why would they title this, is really important, a really good way to help you understand what the author is thinking. There's a reason the book is called Harry Potter, because the main character's name is Harry Potter. It's not named Draco Malfoy or Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Ultimately, it is Harry's story. So, for example, in the book Divergent, we don't find out what Divergent is until, I would say, maybe a third of the way into the book. So knowing that there's this group of people called Divergent and the title of the book is Divergent, we can probably infer or assume that the role of Divergent is going to be a really important part of the book, which is true because we find out the main character is a Divergent. The Maze Runner. Once Thomas gets to wherever he goes, gets to his little world with all the rest of the boys, we find out that there is this big maze. So that there's these maze runners that go in and explore. So we understand that the book is called Maze Runner, so it's pretty important. It must be pretty important. One, the maze must be important, and two, the job of maze runner must, which is true because Thomas ends up being a maze runner himself. Annotating properly. First thing you're going to do is read the title. Second thing is read through the piece. Keep track of parts that confuse you with a question mark. Underline the main ideas and put exclamation points around things that excite or stand out to you. Read through it again and look for the 5 W's. You'll only read multiple times for short text. I will never expect you to read a book more than once, or really even more than the text more than once. But if it's an article, I expect you to read at least once, just kind of looking out for those vocab words and maybe those main ideas, and then the second time really looking for the 5 W's. So this is part 1 of the video, and the second part will be showing you a brief example of what literary analysis looks like.